PBSA is such a huge part of my story since that conference, that very first one, is where I came home and was like, this is what I want to do when I grow up. So PBSA has been really influential in that part. And I got really great mentors just through the committees I was working in as I was a young professional and developing and growing. And everyone was just so helpful with helping me develop as a person. So I really do appreciate and love PBSA for that. You know, I started serving on committees when I was in college. Literally in between classes, I'd be calling into the committee calls so that I could still be a part of those and, attending as a working professional starting in college and all of that.
Welcome to Behind the Screens, conversations with background screening pros. I'm Les Rosen, your host, and I'm excited to have you here. On this podcast, we chat with the people who know the background screening world inside and out. Executives, industry experts, legal pros, and more. We dive into their personal stories and insights to give you a real look at what's happening behind the scenes. Whether you work in the screening industry or are just curious, Behind the Screens bring you the real, unfiltered conversations from the people who make it all happen. Stick around for stories you won't hear anywhere else. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Behind the Screens, featuring outstanding veterans and interesting people from the screening industry. And today we have one of the most interesting people that we've had on the program today, a person who has grown up in the industry, but has on her own, as an entrepreneur, created her own firm, started AB Global, a role happening background firm, and is a role model, I think, everywhere for entrepreneurs in this industry who want to start a firm and get into the action. And it's a real pleasure to welcome to the program Brittany Bollinger Boyle. Brittany, welcome to the program.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
No, it's my pleasure, and I've known you for a long time, and it's just been a real privilege to see how things have progressed and all the marvelous things you've done. So let's start at the beginning. Tell everybody, let's set the stage. Oh, what is it you're doing now?
Yeah, so right now I'm currently the CEO and founder at AB Global. I founded the company in 2018 after working in the industry for 10 years, but I feel like I've been around it pretty much my whole life. And when I founded the company, I was really looking just to bring what I felt was the heart of background screening back. Watching the industry evolve, I watched it go from this really tight-knit, small company industry to acquisitions, and I just felt like things changed in the industry a lot. So I was looking to kind of bring that back when I founded the company.
And I think your motto is that you operate on the gold standard, right?
Yeah, the gold standard in background screening is our motto, so that's what we try to live to every day.
And tell us about that.
So the gold standard was created as just a higher level, raise the bar, make the industry great again. And
Well, fantastic. So one of the things that stick out is at AB Global, you have a fantastic online course featuring Professor Hootsworth. Tell us about that.
yes, so Professor Hootsworth is our mascot for Screening University. When we created the program, we decided, just like every university out there, we needed a mascot. So that's where Professor Hootsworth was born. We created the mascot and then actually had a naming contest for him. So his name came from a social media contest, and we've been having fun with him ever since.
Oh, that's fantastic. So obviously you're doing wonderful things. So tell us about your career path to get to where you are now. You mentioned that you grew up in the industry and you've worked for a number of years before starting AB Global. You want to give us a little thumbnail about that?
Yeah, definitely. So I always joke and say I'm the youngest old timer in the business. So that's kind of how I see myself. I did go to the very first inaugural PBSA conference as a 12-year-old little girl. And on that plane ride home, I came home and told my dad, I was like, I'm going to be a background screener. This is what I want to do. So ever since then, I kind of kept on that path and did what I needed to get here. And AB Global was always the end goal. I started in the industry, kind of working through various positions, started as a criminal researcher, moved into verifications, account management, sales, pretty much everything but strictly compliance I have done within an industry. I've learned a lot about compliance, but not my favorite part as far as being the educator there. That's why Kurt is our Dean of Screening University and not me.
And that's Kurt Schwal, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
I mentioned Kurt will be a guest in a sometime in the future on the program as well. So you really started at entry level. You did verifications, you did basic criminal research, and then went up from there, right?
Yeah, and I think that that's something so important is for everyone to learn the industry from the ground up. We have internally even our sales reps kind of sit with operations to learn exactly what and how we do things so they understand what they're selling. I think it brings a unique point of view for everyone.
Oh, that's fantastic. And you mentioned your dad, and who might that be?
My dad is Bill Bollinger. So he's been around the industry most of my life. So I'm sure he's pretty known.
Well, and that's what's so interesting. I mean, I refer to him as the legendary Bill Bollinger. And for those of you that don't know Bill, because Bill's been retired now, he really almost, I wouldn't say quite single-handedly, because there's other people that worked with him or doing similar things, but really, in my mind, was the guy who introduced the NatCrim, the National Criminal
Yeah.
Database, and the value of databases and data. And I can remember a time when people were very suspicious of the National Criminal Database, even as a backup secondary tool. And now, of course, this is part and parcel of everything you do. But what's interesting, even though your dad they had so much time in the industry and you attended, I did not remember that you had attended the first PBSA meeting, and then APBS, that you actually launched this. This is not a family firm you took over, or no one handed you anything. This is something that you started from
Yeah,
scratch.
I actually sold my house and said, I'm doing this. So yep, it is all mine. I started this and I absolutely love what I'm doing. So it was a good decision on my end.
Well, and that's such a great lesson for people that are considering to be entrepreneurs, because you actually took the leap. As they say, you looked over the abyss and there was no safety net, right? You took the chance. You could have lost your equity and your investment, and there was no one guaranteeing that there wouldn't be a failure. It was just up to you to make it work, right?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I do have a recollection, too, of you. It's such a clear recollection in my mind of being at a SHRM conference, which I somehow think was at a Las Vegas SHRM or SHRM Talent. That was before my retirement, where I spoke at SHRM pretty much every year. I remember you and your mom and your dad and your brother and you walking the floor, and you were pretty young at the time, right?
Yeah, yeah. I grew up going to those conferences with my father, Bill, and it's really fun to be able to go now, and I actually bring my son with me to some of them, so it's, full circle, 3 generations.
Oh,
So
that's
that's always really
fantastic.
fun.
Of course, the thing I like most about the conference is all the free stuff, all the giveaways.
Yeah.
But, all the junk that looks really cool at the time, then you bring it home and go, "What's this for?" Other than the chocolate, which is still pretty good. So now you've gone full generation, and now you bring your son to those conferences, right? Then you
Yeah.
said, okay.
So he's come with me to a couple of the SHRM ones, and he'll actually be at his first PBSA this October. So excited for him to come to that with me.
Oh, fantastic! And so, if you're going to bring your son, I think it's okay for me to ask, how old is he?
He will be almost 2 at that point, or 3,
Okay.
almost 3.
All right, folks. Well, if you're at the
Getting
PBSA
started
conference,
young.
it's kind of young, but if you're at the PBSA conference, and I get where it's in Anaheim in 2025,
Yep,
be
Anaheim.
be sure to say hello to Brittany and her son as well. And that's fantastic. All right. I mean, the career path's really amazing, because, like, a couple of things come to mind. A lot of people I talk to in the program, say, well, when I was young, I never thought, I'd end up on career day that I'd end up being a background screener, but you did.
Yeah, yeah. I actually, I remember in middle school on our, like, what do you want to be when you grow up day, My friends were like, I want to be an NBA player. I'm going to be a doctor, a lawyer, all these other things. And I was like, I'm going to be a background screener. That sounds so cool, doesn't it, guys? And they were like, well, what does that do? What does that mean? So, I did. I really grew up just wanting to be a part of and be in this industry.
Oh, that's fantastic. So what do you like most about the industry? What's your passion about it? What do you enjoy about it? What's your attraction to it?
Yeah, so I feel like I'm a people person. I feel like I like to build trust and help people understand things. And I always knew I wanted to help people, but I also found out growing up, I don't do blood. So being a cop or a doctor, a nurse, anything like that was just not in my variety of skills there. So when my dad started in background screening, it was kind of that light bulb moment that it's a way to help people without having to have the bloody side of it. So that's kind of where, when I started like really getting into the industry, where it came from is just my want to help people, and it's just a different way to do that.
Oh, well, that's great. I can really identify with not wanting to have the blood part. I think, right, the old joke that lawyers are actually doctor wannabes that couldn't stand the sight of blood. So that's why I went to law school instead of medical school. When when I had that realization, I don't think I want to see the inside of your bodies. But although I did as a DA, I used to go to a number of autopsies and got to have that experience. But anyway, that's a whole different world. Since you've been in the industry for so long, and you leading up to starting AB Global, you really rose up through the ranks and acquired all the different skills. Are there any lessons you learned early on in your career that has stuck with you?
Yeah, I think some of the lessons I've learned is it's really easy to cut corners, especially in this industry. And it's not an industry you should be cutting corners. So just making sure you're doing the right thing with background screening and when no one's watching. So I think that's probably a really big lesson is, you see all these lawsuits that come out, and a lot of the times it's from corners being cut. So, that's something that's really important to me is that we don't cut corners, but also culture in a company and just making sure that the culture's there, because I always, when you add up the hours you spend doing fun things and outside of work and the hours you spend working your life, you spend a lot more time working than you do doing pretty much anything else. So, I think making sure the culture is good and people enjoy what they do and they enjoy coming to work every day and working with the people they're with, I think that brings a lot. So those are probably my two biggest lessons.
Oh, that's fantastic. So not taking shortcuts, doing it right, doing it the way the client would do it if the client was in the room watching you, basically, and the culture and the people. And I think you're also a natural-born educator too, if I can make that assumption.
Yeah, I do love, like, I've always been a consultative. Even when I got into sales rep, I want to make sure that they're educated, they understand everything. And, I think that's part of where Screening University came in for us and why it was a no-brainer to have that program come under and be a part of AV Global.
That's great. And if someone listening is interested in the university, how do they find? Just go to your site?
Yeah, so you can go to our website, or you can actually go to screeninguniversity.com, and that would allow you to register for those courses
Oh,
as well.
fantastic. So, given your long history in the background screening industry, starting as a 12-year-old attendee at the first APBS
Yeah.
slash PBSA conference, from your point of view, really, sort of top of mind, what is the biggest changes you've seen in the industry?
Yeah, so I think thinking back to it, while I wasn't working in the industry when faxing was literally how you got everything, I did see it. I watched the industry go from faxing to email to technology platforms to integrations, So I think that just the ever evolving automation and technology in the industry is so cool to watch. I feel like every couple months now you're seeing something new come out that could really change the industry. So I think that that's the biggest changes I'm really seeing.
And as you sit here, just as an industry observer and also as a entrepreneur that has owned and started, operated a screening firm, what do you when I ask you, what do you think the biggest challenge is? What's the first thing that pops in your head?
Probably keeping human touch with all the automation and technology that just exists because with background screening, I feel like you have to have a human look at it. There's just so many errors for technology to, understand. And then when you put laws and regulations in there, if this do that, the AI can fully understand with the different FCRA laws everywhere.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, I mean, we operate at the intersection of laws and regulations and employment, and I don't think that the legislatures in the 50 states or the Congress will ever allow automated decision making when it comes to something like employment. At some point, there has to be, if there's a person who has a criminal record, there just has to be, for example, in that situation, a human analysis. There has to be a judgment call, and I'm not seeing now how AI can make those judgment calls, how you can have NHI, no human involved processes. So
No.
that's very interesting. In looking back in the background screening arena, what comes to mind as an accomplishment or something that pops to your head that brings a smile that you're most proud of?
I think just launching AB Global as a whole, working my way up in this industry and starting as just a criminal researcher and then moving my way up in the industry. I think that that's probably my proudest moment is just when I started AB Global and watching it just become what it has, where there's great culture within our organization. Our employees love to show up to work every day. I absolutely love the team I have. So, I think that that's probably my biggest accomplishment.
Yeah. I mean, and starting a background firm from scratch is, for those of us who've been down that route, is no small thing. All right. It's a huge
No.
accomplishment. So congratulations. That's marvelous. So one of the interesting things that your interaction with PBSA amazingly started when you were 12 in the first meeting in Arizona, and since then you've been on the board, you've been chair of a key committee, the membership committee.
Yeah.
What's been the influence of PBSA in your career, and how important has PBSA been to the industry and to your career?
Yeah, so PBSA is such a huge part of my story since that conference, that very first one, is where I came home and was like, this is what I want to do when I grow up. So PBSA has been really influential in that part, and I got really great mentors just through the committees I was working in as I was a young professional and developing and growing, and everyone was just so helpful with helping me develop as a person. So I really do appreciate and love PBSA for that. I started serving on committees when I was in college. Literally in between classes, I'd be calling into the committee calls so that I could still be a part of those and, attending as a working professional, starting in college and all of that. But, and then I went from committee member to actually being the youngest board member ever on PBSA. So that was a pretty
Oh,
big accomplishment for me as well. It was kind of one of those goals I had for myself, when you create those career goals for yourself. So hitting that was really big for me as well. But I really am just grateful for that community I found within PBSA.
and you've gone through the accreditation process for your firm, correct?
Yeah, so we actually just got the double
Wow.
accreditation just 2 months ago now. So we just got that double accreditation.
Well, congratulations. Single accreditation is hard enough, but the double accreditation is, quite the chore. So congratulations on that.
Yeah, we
That's
kind of felt like
marvelous.
it went with the AB Global name.
Right, exactly. With that being your name, so the second accreditation is the global accreditation, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I think that came out since I retired. So I remember hearing something about that. Well, so much interesting here. I mean, do you have any advice to people that are, entrepreneurs that are thinking of taking the leap from whatever they're doing to actually starting a business such as a background firm?
Yeah, so, with background screening, I definitely, whether you're looking to be an entrepreneur in background screening or you're just somebody looking to enter the space, I think PBSA is such a great resource. There's great education there. It's a great way to connect and meet people. Like I said, I've met so many mentors throughout my career through PBSA. So definitely that would be my first place for anyone is look at PBSA.
And now I feel virtually certain that you've come full circle now too, and you've now become a mentor to people. I would
Yeah.
assume that look to you or ask you questions, right?
Yep. Yeah. So it's full circle moment there.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, let's move away a little bit from, but believe it or not, there is life beyond and outside of background screening. So, Brittany, tell us, what do you do for fun? What's your hobbies, your interests outside of work? What are some of the things that you do that,
Yeah, so I am a Florida girl through and through. So I'm usually on the water whenever I can be. So me and my son and my husband will go to the beach, go on the boat, things like that. So love being on the water. So that's typically what we'll do on the weekends. And then just anything active with our son. He, like I said, is 2 now, so we just like to keep him busy and active on the weekends.
oh, that's great. So you guys have a boat and you're able to boat around what I do.
Well, you can rent boats and stuff now.
Yeah,
I
right.
wish we had a boat.
All right. Well, there we go. There's
But
another goal
well,
for you.
yeah.
No, when I don't get to Florida as often as I used to, but I mean, between the Atlantic Ocean and the inland waterway, and then the Gulf, which is almost like a bathtub, it's just warm and beautiful. There's just so
Yeah.
many opportunities there.
Yeah, lots of good water to see.
Yeah, the only water I haven't been into, other than hot water, is the Everglades. Too many alligators, but all right.
Yeah, the springs are nice. They have cold water, so
Oh
those are
yeah,
always nice too.
yeah, that's right. I mean, they have these marvelous springs with 100-foot visibility, and
They're really
that.
cool to go see.
Oh, that's amazing. So, time to play fun facts. Tell us something about yourself that people may not know, completely unrelated to background checks.
Yeah, so I am a huge music junkie. So I absolutely love all genres of music. I'm always looking for the next concert or a music festival. I went on my first music cruise last year and absolutely loved that. So definitely always looking for those new ones now. But I've seen some of the legends like Elton John and Phil Collins, Bad Company. So some, big legends out there, as well as anywhere from Red Hot Chili Peppers to Metallica to different country artists. So just any kind of genre of music, if it has some good lyrics or a good beat, I want to be at the show.
Oh, that's fantastic. So, tell us about the music cruise, because I've heard about those. That
Yeah,
sounds a lot of fun.
yeah. So Creed is one of my favorite bands, like growing up, and they had their reunion just last year. They launched it on a music cruise. So that's kind of what got me started on the music cruising, was that cruise. So that's what got me started on that. But it's literally just a cruise that goes out and there's like concerts all day. So
Wow.
it's really fun.
Oh, that's fantastic. My wife's a big fan of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and so I get dragged to various concerts. And I think I'm the only person on the planet who ever actually fell asleep during a Red Hot Chili Pepper concert. I don't know quite how I did that,
You might be.
but oh, this has been great. Well, given all the time that you've spent in the screening industry and everything you've accomplished, what would be your advice that you would give to, someone either entering the industry, or maybe someone who's been a verifier or a criminal record research for a year or two and trying to decide which direction to go or what to do? What would be your advice as to how to maximize your time in the screening industry, or how to, move ahead, or, get into positions of greater responsibility, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so I think for me, and this sounds so cliche, is follow your heart. Usually, especially in a career, like in your gut and your heart, if you're doing what you want to do or what feels good to you. So that for me, I know it sounds so cliche, follow your heart, but for me, that is so true. I've left companies following my heart, and they've always ended up being for the right reason. So that's probably my biggest thing.
Yeah, and when you do that, it's always, there's part of the rational part of you that's saying, well, does this make sense, or what will other people say? But it's hard to stay true to yourself, and hard
Yeah.
to really recognize what it is you want, right?
Yeah, definitely. But I think that's the best advice I could give anyone because, like I said, you work more than you play, so you better enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah, oh, that's great advice. Well, this has been, great spending time with you. We've gone a little over to what we normally do, but it's been so much great information and so much history, and a lot of interesting things I didn't know. So just so really fun to spend time with you, Brittany. Before we leave, do you have any last words or closing thoughts you'd like to add or share to the podcast?
Just thank you so much for having me. And if you're interested in background screening, PBSA is such just a great place to network. So I just recommend everyone look at that if they're interested in background screening anything.
That's great. Now, when you went to your first PBSA conference in Arizona, when you said when you were young, what did you do there? What did you?
I walked around the exhibit hall. I tried to sneak into some sessions to see what was going on there. And Arizona was the most brown place I'd ever been at that point. So it was, I just remember when we were driving around, even the Walmart there was brown. And I was like, okay. But yeah, so I enjoyed that first conference just like I do all of the other ones, just a little differently now.
Have you been to most of the conferences? Because you started at the first one, and
I have been until the last 2 years when I had my son. I took a break, so this will be my
yeah.
first conference back in October as well since I had my son.
Oh, that's great. I mean, you may hold the record for the most conferences then, given that you started at the very first one.
Yeah, if you add them up, maybe.
That could be. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been a wonderful half hour with Brittany Bollinger Boyle, who has regaled us with fantastic stories about starting in the background screening industry at 12 years old, basically, growing up in it, and then doing her own thing and creating her own firm and having a wonderful entrepreneurial career path and just doing great stuff with some great advice. So, Brittany, appreciate your time with us today, and thank you very much. All right, that was yet another wonderful conversation with a background screening pro. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an update. And hey, if you got a moment, we'd love for you to leave us a review. It really helps get the word out. For more info or to catch up on past episodes, or to make suggestions or to suggest possible future guests, head over to our website. Once again, this is your host, Les Rosen, and it's been a pleasure to bring you another episode. See you on the next episode. Thanks.